It's a calm and beautiful Friday, of course, exactly what Friday needs as we set into the weekend, and we're here to make it even more brighter. Good morning. Welcome to the Morning Brief right here on Channels Television. I am Bukola Koka. Hi, Kelly.
Hi, Bukola. It's the TGIF edition of the show this morning. It's a calm Friday, you would say. It's been a wet one as well. It's been raining since yesterday. Welcome to the show, everyone. Wherever you're watching from around the world, we're live from our headquarters here in Lagos, Nigeria. I am Kelly Egiga. It's been an interesting 24 hours.
Indeed, and that's why the calm is welcome. Because right after our conversation yesterday, the Thursday edition of the show, where we reported a major accident along the Kara axis of the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, there was another along Baga, and Baga is just before you arrive Kara, and that involved, another string of vehicles, according to what we are gathering. But I'm not quite sure, Kelly, you have more information about that one. What's the casualty of that?
No,
from that particular one?
I think there are no casualties, thankfully. Thankfully. But this happened yesterday evening, we understand, precisely this time around, back to Otedola Bridge. So what you're seeing now is the Kara Bridge. We are even just being told just now that there was even another accident on this same bridge this morning. So Otedola Bridge, rather, this morning. So just to add to what has played out in the last 24 hours, let's take you through what has played out. So it started on Wednesday night on Kara Bridge. Two trucks, we understand, collided and got burnt. A towing vehicle approached that bridge to help to the trucks when another truck ran into the towing vehicle. And I think the casualty for that, as at yesterday, we had at least 5 persons, including a police officer and 5 persons, which made the number, raised the number to at least 6 as of yesterday. And just when we thought, calm and normalcy had returned to the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, the Kara and Beja area and Otedola Bridge, yesterday evening, Thursday evening, again, we heard of another accident, this time back to Otedola Bridge, and we understand that involved about 7 cars, and we have images to walk you through that particular accident as well yesterday evening. I remember I had to do a call across to the PRO of the Lagos State's Traffic Management Agency, LASMA, who indeed confirmed that development to us on the Otedola Bridge. Remember, on Wednesday as well, there was, on Tuesday or thereabout, Wednesday morning, we had reported an accident on the Otedola Bridge as well. So this is footage from that section of the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, and that caused some sort of traffic yesterday evening. So it's been from one accident to another, and in the last 48 hours, I think we can mention that we've seen about 5 to 6 accidents involving multiple trucks and vehicles and all of that. Well, Jeffrey Uzono joins us live on the program as well from South Africa. Jeffrey, you have missed a lot. A lot has been happening on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. This is the route that you also ply to work, but it's really tragic here. But how are you, and how is SA this morning?
It's Kelly and Bukola. Good to see you guys. I'm great from Cape Town, South Africa, somewhere around what they call the Up Mountain right here. It's a cool, calm weather right here. It's always very cold. As well, I've been told that this is not even as cold as it's supposed to be if I was to come earlier than this. But getting back to the conversation around the traffic incident around the Kara Bridge area, I read through it, saw what happened at the Kara area, and then not too long after that, another happened around the Otedola Bridge area. It just speaks to some of the things we've been talking about over and over perhaps on the show and generally as a people. So for now, I do not have all the brief in terms of what exactly caused this, whether it's over speeding or a brake failure and all of this. But articulated vehicles have been some sort of a nuisance when it comes to incidents around that area. Just as you mentioned, I never knew that a towing vehicle that came to resolve the issues of maybe moving another vehicle that was having that was involved in the accident, that towing vehicle was hit again. I don't know whether it was because the driver of the other vehicle had no visibility, but it's quite sad to see that in Lagos, they were ending the month of October on the low with these avoidable deaths. So I really do not know, but these kinds of situation can be managed. I'm in Cape Town, South Africa. Literally, there are cameras everywhere controlling all forms of speed limit. And nobody's going to talk to you. You're not going to see police. You're not going to see any of these things. As soon as you break those speed limits, you'll be, of course, you have to pay some money for violating traffic rules and all of that. So this area perhaps that is prone to incidents like this, maybe the Kara Bridge down to that stretch and back to Berger area, which is quite a busy area, although it's an expressway, maybe we have to do what they did on the Third Mainland Bridge to limit the incidents like this, the 80 kilometers, 90 kilometers. But these are not difficult things to do. All you need is proper road management, traffic management, deploying technology, and this can be resolved. But our thoughts and our prayers are with everyone, the families that have been affected, because these guys, as were going about their usual business, going wherever they were going, and now they are no more with us.
Indeed, Jeffrey, you know, one would think that the scars of others would be, make us cautious, but that has not been the case on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway in the last 24 hours. After that accident on the Kara axis of the bridge, we're reporting another on the Otedola portion of the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. Recall, Kelly, that on Tuesday we were talking about an accident on Otedola axis on Monday. So it's been a string of accidents on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. Speaking of accidents, there was another accident reported on the Mongoro area of Lagos-Abeokuta Expressway, another major expressway in the last 24 hours, involving a bus rapid transit vehicle. Thankfully, there are no casualties, but several are said to have been injured in that particular incident. We're talking about condolences, and indeed our thoughts and prayers are with all that have passed as a result of the accident on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway yesterday. At the time we were reporting here in the morning, the casualty was 3, but it has since increased to about 6 from yesterday at night. That means that, you know, perhaps they have recovered bodies of those who may have died or drowned in the river. Recall that the front portion of that truck was what plunged into the river, and the driver and the passenger were in the front portion of the truck yesterday. A really tragic incident that unsettles the imagination. And the police commissioner in Lagos, CP Olorundare Jimoh, was at the scene of the accident yesterday, and he also told reporters that a member of the force, an inspector, died in that accident. It's really sad. We also commiserate with the Lagos Police Command over the death of that inspector. His name has not particularly come through now, but he just speaks to the state of infrastructure. And when you consider these accidents, in fact, the one that happened on the Otedola portion of the bridge, we're hearing that a truck hit a Sienna, and that's what caused the accident. So you can hardly remove trucks from the accident or articulated vehicles from the accident that have occurred on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway in the last 24 hours. These trucks are definitely not good for our roads. The weight that they bear, they're not good for our roads. Yeah. And are these conversations being had, at the management level, of agencies who provide emergency services on these roads? Are these honest conversations being had? What can be done to ensure that they are off the roads. They resort to cargo in the transportation of the goods that they bear, across the expressway from one state to another, or from one part of one state to another. These are the issues that we should be talking about. Speaking of which, we'll be having one of the managers of maintenance of roads on the show shortly on the program to speak to these issues. Because if you look at the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, indeed, the construction has progressed in the last 5 years, but increasingly there are portions of the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway that require maintenance. And, we're not far from the truth when we, consider and realize that it is the weight of these articulated vehicles, that is, responsible for the damage done to joints. So we'll be having that very critical conversation, shortly on the program. But Jeffrey, you're removed from the drama of the last 24 hours, and I'm so glad for you, because you could have been traveling on that road. But we're glad that everyone is fine. Yeah.
I'm just going to quickly say that, kudos to the Lagos State government and all of the security agencies, because geographically, the Kara section of the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway falls under Ogun State. But we see the swift response from Lagos State, and every time we see these accidents happen on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, we see the Lagos parts of the Southwest always taking the lead. And I'm calling out the Ogun State government. You have to do more. You have to do better. And then secondly, there's this phrase we say in Nigeria, no grief for anybody. And perhaps that is one of the causes of why we see these accidents over and over again. No grief for anybody, and it looks as if because of that, sometimes people drag the roads. You want to show this person that you cannot overtake me. And in the end, imagine the traffic you can see now on your screen. So, where has that taken us to really? The whole no grief for anybody, you understand? Where has that taken us to? I think we just need to have some sort of patience. Because the patience you don't exercise while driving, the patience you do not exercise while observing traffic rules and regulations, you will be forced to have that patience for 2-3 hours like we experienced yesterday when the roads or highways were shut down completely.
Kelly, just look at the images we're seeing on the screen now. You can't count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vehicles within 100 meters without counting an articulated vehicle. And these vehicles are responsible for the damage done to the joints on these expressways. And you can count the number of damaged joints on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. And to think that the construction has just progressed only in the last 3 to 4 years from the Muhammadu Buhari administration. So, what happened to all of the funds deployed to the maintenance, to the reconstruction of that road? That's the conversation that we should be having. We should be talking about, the weight of these articulated vehicles. And you were right on the money when you talk about the response of, Lagos to emergencies on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. Sometimes you find LASMA officials during critical times as far, further down the expressway to, Wawa end of the bridge. And you're wondering, where are the Ogun State emergency officials, to provide critical
I think they have one
service?
called Trace or something.
Yes, you see them sometimes in trickles, but they're not as present as they ought to be. And we should be calling out the Ogun State government more often when it comes to emergency response on that road.
All right. Well, just before we round off on some of our major talking points this morning, let's reflect again on yesterday. Mr. President finally had the chance to decorate and swear in the new service chiefs, just like we had anticipated on Wednesday. Mr. President having there to decorate and swear in the new service chiefs. And he's charged them. He had some very strong comments and words for the new service chiefs. The papers have captured it a bit more, and so perhaps would not stay so much on this. But Jeff, in your absence, a lot has been happening. The service chiefs have been sworn in, Jeff.
Absolutely, I follow through. I'm Nigerian through and through, so there's nothing going on. I don't try to catch up because that is my country, and I will always love to follow wherever I am, anywhere in the world. And congratulations to the men who are now decorated and they've been confirmed by the Senate to do the work of securing Nigeria. But there's a big task ahead of them. It's not just a funfair. It's not just about being elevated. It's about providing significant security and improved security for the people of Nigeria. And Nigerians are not asking for too much. It's for these men, on one hand, to be allowed to do their job. Because sometimes when we blame these guys or these members of the armed forces, sometimes not entirely their fault. Sometimes it's your welfare. It's the issue of not being allowed to do their job. So you remember when the president made his visit to Benue State after several calls that he should visit Benue because of what had happened in Benue that period. I remember him talking to the security agencies and saying, look, the service chiefs and I think the IGP that was there, why has no one been arrested? Now, he doesn't need to tell anyone to arrest anyone. That is their job. Nobody needs to tell me to do my job. I already know my job. But that tells you that sometimes when they do their job, maybe someone overrules them within the authority, maybe even not to the knowledge of the president. So these are the things that they must be given free hands to do their job. That is the appeal. The political class and the influencers from the top should let officers do their job professionally, ethically, as much as possible. There's a lot on their table. We are already talking about the election. And if you follow elections in Nigeria, towards the election, there's always an uprise or a surge in insecurity added to what we've been managing before. You know, there was a time the incidents of kidnapping and all of that toned down a little bit and then it spiked yet again. So I don't envy them at this moment because they are at the crossroad around the political season as well as trying to do their jobs professionally. So there are metrics to measure, number of incidents, number of attacks, number of casualties. That's how the people in that space measure. And their uniqueness across the country, from terrorism and insurgency in the north and kidnappings and all of that in the south, all of this. And I see them making promises. And this is my candid advice. So everyone who's been appointed, from the INEC chairman to the CDS to the service chiefs, talk less, do more. Talk less, do more. Talk less, do more. It's as simple as that, because when you speak beyond what you can do, you may have all the best intention. Oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to make sure that. When you say all of that, the people that will sabotage you are looking at you because sometimes they're even more influential than you in the scheme of things. So just talk less and do more. And I also just appeal to the president to give them all the backing they can get to do their job so that when they make their decisions based on their own understanding of the situation, nobody overrides them. But this is just for the interest of the general public and the interest of Nigerians.
Well, Jeffrey, it's good to see you. I'm getting a good view of you now, and I must say, South Africa looks really good on you. And you ended on the notes that, you know, everyone should be emphasizing on this morning, giving the service chiefs the enablers, the tools with which to work, such that we're celebrating that peace in no distant time, that peace that Mr. President spoke about. Speaking of celebration, the community that will be celebrating this morning would be the, Ivory Towers, because the federal government has released 2.3 billion naira in salary and promotion arrears to the Ivory Towers. And the Minister of Education was speaking yesterday, and he spoke about how this demonstrates the commitment of Mr. President to reforms and indeed to stability in the education sector. And that is cheery news. But, there are other demands, on the list of ASU. And we wonder how ASU will respond to this morning. But it does give a sense of reassurance about the commitment of the federal government to the demands of ASU and, of course, to stability in the education sector. But we have quite a lot more, to talk about this morning. Speaking of which, we'll be bringing you that very critical conversation that has resurfaced online on the rape case from 2018 of a 13-year-old who died afterwards as a result of illness. And, there is a resurgence of, the need for retrial of those who were found culpable in that event. And so what is responsible for the resurfacing of hashtag or Justice for Ochaya online? We'll be finding out from those who are very close to that case. But there's more that we have, Kelly.
Well, of course, I mean, it's a Friday, so we'll just get to have some sort of soft conversations. We don't want to let the cat out of the bag just yet. So let's get to do you dailies in just a moment, and then we'll kickstart our conversations this Friday morning. Good morning. Well, let's head straight into it. Mr. Dayo Akitobi joins us live on the program. Thank you indeed, as always. And always, I mean, in Nigeria, we say, you're looking sharp.
That's very kind of you.
I'm always tempted to use the Nigerian connotations and how we always like to, use these words. So you're looking sharp this Friday morning.
Thank God it's Friday.
Absolutely. Mr. Dayo, let's head straight to the papers. We begin with this Nigeria. Nigeria leads with the swearing in and declaration. It says, "We expect results, not excuses." Tinubu tells new service chiefs. We expect results, not excuses. Tinubu tells new service chiefs. Orders them to smash new armed groups in North Central and North West. Mr. Dayo, I mean, this change, this reshuffling was really very, very sudden and has got many Nigerians talking. But here we go with the Mr. President, I mean, giving this marching orders to the new service chiefs. Perhaps, is this a norm for him to, always talk tough? And is this a norm as well? Is it a norm as well for the service chiefs to also make promises at the start of, their leadership and regime?
That's standard practice, and it's actually starting to sound like a broken record because you look over the last few years, I think since the advent of the APC in 2015, we've had no less than 5 or 6 changes of these service chiefs, and you hear the same charge, you hear the same promises, but the problem doesn't seem to want to go away. So, yes, this one was sudden, and of course, people are reading between the tea leaves and saying it might have to do with this rumored coup that is still under investigation, but it came at a time that was highly unexpected. But my view is that I'm not too sure that changing the service chiefs will bring about wholesale correction or a stronger drive towards resolving the insecurity problem, because we've seen 5 or 6 changes of these chiefs and it's more of the same all the time. And when you look at it, those who have recently been appointed went through the same training program, the same Nigeria Defense Academy. They were all taught the same thing. They came up through the ranks the same way as all of those who have passed through these offices before. So I ask myself, what do we really expect these people to do any different? Perhaps individual characteristics of innovation, creativity, energy levels, because the immediate past service chiefs, particularly the CDS, General Christopher Musa, who has been in the news quite often lately, seemed like a very competent and capable fellow.
I agree.
And Nigerians actually were warming up and responding to him because he seemed like he knew what he was doing. For him to be summarily
removed, also appeared
people-friendly.
Like
very, very.
Looked like he could engage with Nigerians.
Yes, he was a people person
more.
and he engaged with us very well. So I asked myself that if a person like that can be removed or sidelined in view of the fact that the insecurity problem is not diminishing, then what are our expectations of the people who have just been brought in? So I think that if we're looking for real methods to address the insecurity problem, it should go beyond changing the chiefs of defense staff or changing the service chiefs. I think we need to look at the system itself. Things like, how about the combatants, the people actually going out to fight the insecurity? The generals, I think they stay behind and deal with issues of strategy. But the troops on the ground who go and fight the insurgents, the bandits, the kidnappers, what are their circumstances? We never hear about them. We just hear about the service chiefs being changed. What is the state of morale of our troops? How are their emoluments? What happens to those who die in action? Their families, do they have hazard insurance? Do they get risk pay? Do their families, I mean, yeah, we see that they get state burials and all that when the unfortunate happens, but I think that there has to be a deeper reform than just changing the service chiefs, which seems to me to be quite superficial on the surface. I think we need to look more at the troops who are on the ground, issues of remuneration, issues. I know security has the largest part of our budget in the last couple of budget cycles. Perhaps the money is not enough. Perhaps it's not being deployed towards the right methodologies. What role is technology playing? I remember the Super Tucanos, for example, when we bought them, that they were supposed to be the game changer. And the game has not changed several years after.
Instead, we have new armed groups.
Absolutely. Then what I found worrying yesterday was that among each and every one of those service chiefs that was sworn in, when they got to their respective offices and were speaking to the people they now were leading, all of them were talking about internal crises. I heard the Chief of Navy Staff talking about pirates on the water and oil, and those who steal oil and those who vandalize pipelines. And I heard the Army Chief talking about kidnappers, and I just thought to myself, Nigeria is under siege from all of these people. We're literally at war, because if the army that's responsible for territorial integrity, the armed forces, we're not supposed to see them doing anything inside the country. They're supposed to be to inhibit external aggression. For you to now see the armed forces inside the country helping us battle insecurity, it means that the problem has gotten out of hand. I read a story in one of the newspapers that the police command in Kwara State went to a forest in Umuaron and were able to arrest a group of kidnappers and free a captive. And I thought to myself, that's the way this should be. This is the role of the police. For us to have the armed forces working on internal security, it means we have a real serious problem. And for each of the service chiefs yesterday to talk about internal problems of security, as opposed to, well, we shall guard our borders, we shall secure our territorial integrity, we shall keep away external aggression, which is the work of the armed forces. So for them to have as their core focus the issue of internal security, it means we're in this over our heads, and a lot more needs to be done than just reshuffling the service chiefs.
And indeed, when the president, was charging the service chiefs to ensure stability yesterday, I was hoping he was also going to recommit to providing the wherewithal, that the service chiefs required. We were talking about the former chief of defense staff, and I recall that he was an ideas man.
Yeah.
From him, we heard the need to build borders.
Yes.
These are the issues, but were they taking beyond those levels of proposals? And the new service chiefs have spoken to what they need, so we're expecting the administration, to back that up as well. Let's go to the New Telegraph, but Jeffrey has that from South Africa.
Yeah, absolutely. The New Telegraph. Mr. Akintobi, good to see you. I was still looking at the pages of the previous paper, and I saw something interesting. I don't want to go back to it, but I think I saw something that had to do with the Senator Natasha Akpoti having to commission project, and Senator Godswill Akpabio, the Senate President, is the one leading that delegation. But that relates to what is displaying on the screen. The House, the APC hits two-thirds majority with 243 reps as 5 Enugu members dump the PDP. So this has been expected if you're a political watcher. This is no surprise as far as the political space is concerned. The Senate is also close to that, if not almost already there. In terms of two-thirds majority, the implication here is that it's wholesale for the APC. No matter what it is, that decisions have to be made of, or made of whatever decision is being made in the House or in the Senate. If you have this kind of number, you're literally on your way to making sure that the law is passed, the bill is passed, or whatever it is that is being passed. So what do you make of this and the entire space in terms of the polity? The movements have not ended, Mr. Akintobi. More people are still going to defect from what we know and what we see. But for the Nigerian people, it's what is going to be the long-term effect as far as this is concerned in terms of laws and legislation as far as the National Assembly and the executive is concerned.
Well, the beautiful thing about the situation now is what is called a super majority. When any party manages to have a super majority in the National Assembly, things become so much easier for that party. As long as that party is committed to doing the right thing by the Nigerian people, then it becomes a good thing, because opposition can't easily stymie any of the proposed legislation or any of the proposed policies of the executive. When you have a supermajority, things like a constitutional amendment are much easier, because that requires more than just a simple 51% majority. So things like constitutional amendments, passing of bills, impeaching the executive, for example, all those kind of things become relatively easy when you have a supermajority. However, the other side of the coin is a double-edged sword, because the other side of the coin, of course, is that if it's the same party that's in the executive that now has the majority, the supermajority in the National Assembly, then its oversight function could become compromised. Its ability, especially being that the executive in Nigeria has such a strong hold and such a strong influence on the National Assembly, for basically that supermajority to exist, it just means that its oversight function on the executive becomes compromised, which may not necessarily be a good thing, because an opposition that has enough numbers can always scuttle any proposed legislation that they view to be anti-people. But when you have a supermajority, the opposition has little it can do to stop you. And as Jeffrey rightly said, this thing is snowballing. I hear that in the next few days, the governor of Bayelsa is also going to move. And of course, we know he resigned from the PDP, which also brings up a legal question. Yeah. Can he have been for the last week or two without a party and still remain the governor? Because the Constitution requires that for you to hold an executive position, you must belong to a political party. But that's an issue for another day and legal minds to hash out. But when you look at it and you consider the fact that by the time the governor of Bayelsa moves, there's a supermajority of governors from the APC. We now have a supermajority of House of Representatives from the APC. The executive is from the APC. I'm not too concerned about the issue of a one-party state, but my concern now is that the opposition has been emasculated, because they don't have enough numbers to be able to object to anything or to stop anything. They can't filibuster any proposed legislation. They don't have enough numbers to stop anything. In the past, the National Assembly used to have to negotiate with the opposition to try and win one or two members over to their side so they can pass legislation. Now they don't have to even talk to anybody. They've got
no need to lobby.
No need to nothing. They've got a supermajority. They can do and undo. They can run roughshod over the Nigerian people if they so choose. So while it could be a good thing if you have a party that's committed to the ideals of improving the lot of the average Nigerian citizen, at the same time, if you have those who are self-centered and who are working primarily for self-interest, then it becomes a negative thing for the Nigerian people to have a supermajority. So let's sit back and watch and hope and pray and believe that this supermajority will work in our favor.
Well, from there, let's go to the Guardian newspaper, which takes towards a different path, from the first two this morning. It's focusing on the judiciary. Justice on trial as courts battle neglect, infrastructure deficits. And we see, the front page also showing pictures that tell the story. There's the court infrastructure, I believe in Lagos, that's on the front page this morning, that is evidently dilapidated. And if you go into the inside pages 4 and 5, you'll get a sense of the discussion. But Mr. Akintobi, after the hard-fought battle on financial autonomy for judiciary, and the expression of support, especially by the FCT minister, for the construction of houses, accommodation for the judiciary. Is the government focusing on, as we say, the major, the minor rather than the major, as far as what the judiciary needs?
Let me put a question to you. Can you believe that in 2025, in this digital age, judges are still handwriting witness statements? Handwriting. Court reporters and stenographers are still writing by hand transcripts of what unfolds in a courtroom. So if we're at that vestigial stage in 2025, whereby we're still using rudimentary methods to document court processes, why do we expect that their infrastructure or even the court processes will be any more advanced? You walk into a Nigerian courtroom and you're shocked at the level of, I mean, you see files, manual files piled on the court clerk's desk, and you wonder how could they even find anything in the middle of this chaos and this mess. And when the FCT minister is talking about providing houses for the judges, which Bukola alluded to, my thinking is that that's a self-interested position, so that if the judges are comfortable, then they are beholden to the person who made them comfortable. But how about the pursuit of justice? Why are we not paying attention to the tools that make the administration of justice more efficient? You walk into a courtroom. I've been in some courts in Lagos State, and I must say that from the advent of democracy in 1999, the Lagos State government at that time tried to improve the lot of the administration of justice, from the judges' quarters, the courtrooms, the processes. And Lagos courts are probably a little bit better than courts across the country. But if you look at the Guardian article, for example, you see courtrooms that when it rains heavily, the roofs are leaking. You see buckets on the floor catching water in a courtroom in 2025. You see lack of air conditioning, windows are open, judges are fanning themselves. So how do you expect justice to be speedy if the conditions under which they're working are so dismal and abysmal? And the Guardian has brought this to light because all of these things slow down the administration of justice. And justice delayed is justice denied. We know this. So what is the point of financial autonomy for the judiciary? They're getting their money directly now. We would expect to begin to see that they begin to reform. Yes, there's been several years of rot and neglect, and it's going to take quite a while to bring it back up to par. But it is critical because that aspect of the government, the three arms of government, the judiciary, is where everything ends. It can start elsewhere, but the judiciary is critical to the balance of power and to the administration of justice, because that's where we all end up if we don't get satisfaction from the executive or the legislature. So it is important to make sure that apart from keeping the judges comfortable by giving them homes and making them grateful, that's also important to equally address the things that make their work seamless and efficient.
I think it looks like maybe after the COVID-19 pandemic, we all went to sleep, because that during the pandemic there were virtual hearings and proceedings. So I don't know. It looks like maybe after the pandemic, we decided to just you know what? Let's go back to our analog ways.
Well, COVID was good because it showed us the fact that there were alternative ways to get things done. We don't have to be in the courtroom physically. We can do it from home. Yes. We can do it from wherever.
All right. I'm sure we have to go now, but perhaps we can just briefly look at Leadership Friday, because it has an interesting rider there, which my colleague mentioned earlier. After the fight, after the battle and tussle, I'm not going for the main rider. I'm going for Natasha invites Akpabio, others for project inauguration. Mr. Akintobi, what is this? Politics, strategy, loyalty, or bromance?
They've kissed and made up.
Oh my word.
Well, look, politics, there's no permanent friends, no permanent enemies, no permanent interests. So there was this dust-up, they had a fight, it went all the way to court, it led to suspension, all kinds of things happened in the middle. But now, they've got common interests again. Natasha is back, Senator Natasha is back in the Senate. For her to get all of her motions heard and passed, she needs to be in the good books of the leadership. For her to be able to be on a committee, all the benefits that come from being
juicy committees.
I don't like that word juicy. It's only in Nigeria here.
But it's the reality
they
of
say,
ground.
oh, he was appointed to a juicy ministry. And I said, juicy? What? That word is so reprehensible because it talks about the fact that everybody looks at this thing as what benefit can I derive from it? Not what I'm going there to do for the people. It's juiciness.
So Nigerians wasted their money on aspirin, after getting headaches on this matter in the last 6 months.
And that's where it was going to go at the end of the day. They were going to kiss and make up. So, hey, they took us all for a nice ride.
All right, well, it's a fine place to leave it. We are absolutely pressed for time, but must thank you indeed, as always, for your analysis and commentaries. Mr. Dayo Akito, thank you indeed. My pleasure always. Well, this is the morning brief. After this timeout, we get to head to our very first conversation. It has to do with this call and justice for a 13-year-old who was raped and eventually died. It's a sad story, and it gets our attention next. Please stay with us.
Welcome back. Now, our first conversation is a rather sad one, and it has elicited public outrage on social media and even on site where the conversation is being had. 7 years after 13-year-old Ochanya Ogbanji was raped and died as a result of the illness, incurred from years of abuse from her guardian. The hashtag Justice for Ochanya has resurfaced online. Now, for context, those found culpable in this saga, her guardian, Obuja, and his wife, Felicia Obuja, which were tried in separate cases. NAPTIP initiated a civil case against the wife of the alleged perpetrator, Felicia Obuja, who was convicted for failing to protect the little girl even after knowledge of the abuse, years of abuse, and she was convicted. But in another case, a criminal case of rape and other charges, manslaughter, because the little girl died, Andrew Obuja, I believe that's his name, was discharged and acquitted because of discrepancies in the evidence provided by the prosecutor. And so why is this case returning? Because it was tried and dispensed in 2022. We'll have that conversation because it speaks to our justice system. And many who have been speaking, who have been concerned about this case are saying it is representative of not just Ochanya Elizabeth Ogbanji, but many others who are perhaps going through this, and the justice system has failed them. Don't forget that amid all of this, there are testimonies online of the deceased when she was talking about how the abuse went on. And the abuse was not done allegedly by the perpetrator who was tried alone. That's Andrew Obuja, but his son as well, if you have heard the testimony given by the deceased before her passing. And joining us now on the program is the elder brother of the deceased, John Ame, who is also a journalist. He joins us from our Abuja studio. And Mr. Kruha, Ukan Kruha, a civil society activist, will also be joining us virtually on the program. But let's start with you, John. It's good to have you on the program. Good morning and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So, first of all, take us through the trial and how we got here, and what you frown on in the process of that trial, the trial of the perpetrators, those who were found culpable and the acquitted, what you found to be discrepancies that are not aligning.
Okay. The process that led to the arrest and eventual prosecution of Andrew Obuja and his wife, Felicia Obuja, was a very difficult one. If we go back to when Ochanya died on 17th of October 2018, it became clear that we were in for a long haul. And the process eventually started with, of course, reporting to the police that Ochanya had been serially raped by Mr. Obuja and his son, Victor Obuja, who was then an undergraduate at the Federal University of Agriculture in Makurdi. But after the initial arrest of Mr. Obuja, his son went underground. And then we asked the police to find him and make him account for what has happened to Ochanya. But the police never did that. And then, sadly, Ochanya passed in October, even before the next adjourned date when Mr. Obuja was first brought to court in August of 2018. Now, with Ochanya's passing, the police began a fresh investigation into the matter. And then Ochanya's remains were conveyed to Makurdi, where an autopsy was conducted on her at the Federal Medical Center. And then I was there. Her body was taken back to Otukpo, where she died, and then we kept her in the morgue. Then there was a need for a second opinion of the autopsy. And then medical experts came to take her samples, which was conducted at, another autopsy was conducted at the police laboratory center in Lagos, the forensic center belonging to the police. So, obviously, there are two medical reports here now, talking about autopsy reports here regarding the case. And these reports were presented before the court, the State High Court in Makurdi, that is the Benue State High Court, presided over by Justice Augustine Itohiman, who is now a judge on the bench of the Court of Appeal. In his evaluation of the evidence before him, he did say there were two medical reports, autopsy reports, and he was at a loss as to which to choose from the two. But of course, we know that the police have the statutory duty to do investigation. They are the foremost law enforcement agency. And then they have a specialized laboratory for this kind of investigation. And they came up with their report. So if you are to look at all of this, if you are to examine the two autopsy reports, you would discover that the one from the police is more authentic than whatever autopsy that was conducted on Ochanya by the Federal Medical Center in Makurdi. So that was the basis for the judge saying there were discrepancies in the autopsy reports that were that the prosecution led in the course of the trial. And then it went on to say, Ochanya did not Ochanya did not give an account of her travail, despite the fact that a video recording of Ochanya was played in court, where she spoke clearly about what has happened to her and the persons that were responsible, specifically Mr. Andrew Obuja and his son Victor Obuja. So there was no ambiguity about what happened to Ochanya, and she made it clear. But the judge again went on to say, oh, she was not around to be cross-examined. And these were the two basic grounds for the discharge and acquittal of Mr. Obuja.
I'd like to follow up on the reports presented to the judge in the trial of Mr. Andrew Obuja. But my colleague in South Africa, Jeffrey, has a question for you. Jeffrey, over to you.
Yeah, let me stay with you, Mr. Peter, for a moment. Looking through this case, there seems to be some level of a contradiction on the cases that relates to this girl. On one hand, we understand the court had found the mother, the wife of the person who is accused, and the son of negligence. On the other hand, the case of the first court, as you've seen it play out, as far as this particular matter is concerned. Now, what we understand is that has caused this resurgence is to the effect that the gentleman who has been on the lookout, who is accused of being partly responsible, allegedly, of these things, has been seen online flaunting and all of that. What I want to find out from you, when it comes to issues of court and judgment and all of this, there has to be a next step, next reaction. What is that next step? Because anger may not just be enough.
Okay, yeah, it's very simple. The police know what they ought to do. Their statutory responsibility is to prevent a crime. And if in the event that they fail to prevent crime, it occurs, they have to investigate and bring the perpetrators to justice. What they are supposed to do at the moment is to declare Victor Obuja wanted and launch a manhunt to arrest him. There are no two ways about it. They have to do that as quickly as possible. Not just Victor Obuja, including the sister, Winifred Obuja, who started the whole of this problem in terms of their online visibility. So if the police are serious in getting to the root of this matter, they are immediately required to launch a manhunt to arrest Victor Obuja. He cannot be hiding for 7 good years since Ochanya passed away. And you're telling us that you can't find him, whereas on a daily basis, journalists and civil rights activists are being arrested by police on flimsy issues of cyber bullying and all manner of issues that are related to politicians and the elite. We can't be operating like we are in Stone Age. This is the 21st century. Nigeria cannot afford to live in this manner. We're talking about a child, a teenager, a 13-year-old. What that tells us about Nigeria is that this country does not care about the vulnerable people. And for context, we must situate this issue in the right context. Because the Obujas are not acting alone. If you would like to know, this is a lecturer at the State Polytechnic in Ugbokolo. But he has the backing of top people because we are being harassed, intimidated, and threatened. In fact, my life is in danger. Since the resurgence the renewed cause for justice, I no longer stay at home because I know that they are against the advocacy that is going on, calling for justice. The groundswell of support has been overwhelming. And they don't want that. So with the support of their collaborators, they feel that they can bully people out of the struggle and then threaten them with death. Our parents are there in the village with no protection. I wrote several times. So these are the issues that are at stake.
Mr. Mayor, yes, just to confirm for us that information, because it's really, concerning and disturbing. When you say you're receiving threats, confirm for us how, text messages, calls, Do you have evidence to prove, and from who?
Okay, now this is the point. In 2018, when Mrs. Ogbuja was arraigned at the Federal High Court in Makurdi by NAPTIP, I went to the court to witness proceedings, and I was attacked by Mrs. Ogbuja's younger sibling, who is by the name Inaligu Ochiga. He came there with his goons, and then tried to harass me, and then at the end of the day, he told me categorically that I will deal with you. You will see what will happen to you in the course of this trial. And subsequent, my subsequent appearance in court, we were met with the same kind of treatment. I wrote a petition to the Commissioner of Police in Benue State, telling him about the threats that I've received verbally from the family of Mrs. Ogbuja, right, particularly her siblings. But they never did anything about it. I wrote the Inspector General of Police telling him that we need security, we need protection, including witnesses that were being intimidated not to go to court.
All right.
To testify in this matter. They are there. And for context, let me put it clearly in here now. They're talking about it, let's be clear about this. They came out to say it, even they were saying it, that they have the backing, they have the support of people who would help them. Someone, for instance, like Senator Abamuru, they said he could help them. He is the current Senate minority leader, but Abamuru came out to deny that he had no hand in it. But it became troubling because for 7 years, could you imagine for 7 years that the police, for such a despicable crime, the police has refused to arrest the principal perpetrator of this crime? That is shocking. It only tells you about what we do as a country. It tells you about the failure of government in fighting crime, specifically the police.
All right. Mr. Mayor, I'm not quite sure that under the laws, a person that had been tried and acquitted before can be retried. I'm not quite sure about that. But for the fugitive, who is the son to the perpetrator, alleged perpetrator who was tried and acquitted, there are reports that new evidence is resurfacing online and the case has been reinstituted. Can you confirm that to us? While you're also telling us why this hashtag Justice for Chanya has resurfaced online after the trial was dispensed with in 2022. What series of events precipitated this?
No, you can't say that the matter has come to an end. It hasn't, because the principal suspect in this matter has not been arrested. He's not been put on trial. I remember, Ms. Ogbuja was convicted as a result of this case. So if you have, there are two issues. I mean, you have on one issue, two different outcomes. That is strange. Mrs. Ogbuja went up to the Court of Appeal to overturn, she sought to overturn her conviction, but the Court of Appeal affirmed her conviction and even came harder on her for allowing her son and husband to rape Ochanya up to the point that she suffered immensely and then passed away. So it is for the police. As a matter of fact, there should be no need for saying, oh, you need to write a petition to the Inspector General of Police to restart the case. The case is active.
All right.
Victor Ogbuja is a fugitive. So they should go after him. This is an opportunity for the Inspector General of Police to declare him wanted and ask the Commissioner of Police in Benue and all over the country to launch him out and arrest him.
All right, Peter.
There is nothing he cannot, even if it's outside of the shores of the country, he should be brought in to account for what has happened here.
Mr. Mayor, let's get more perspectives to this discussion. We are joined as well by Mr. Okankuru, who is a gender and human rights activist. He joins us virtually as well. Mr. Kuru, thank you indeed for holding on and standing by there following the conversation. Rape in Nigeria is a pervasive issue. The data around it indicates a really, really high prevalence. Walk us through just how this story from your end is shaping up, plus the fact that perhaps you can walk us through some numbers as well in Benue State. How much of a prevalence is this in Benue State as well?
Nigerians, thank you for having me. My network is very bad. I just pray I'll be able to hit the point because the network has been very
You can go ahead as quickly as possible.
So we know that rape is a crime. And it's disheartening to say that we're bringing back Ochanya's issue again. And I'm happy at the same time that Ochanya's spirit is not resting because we've sought for justice. We thought we got it. But Ochanya's spirit has been telling us that, look, you guys will have to let me rest. So we're up again. But let me tell you something about rape cases in Nigeria. But let me bring it down to my catchment area, which is Benue State. In Benue, I'm accusing, and I'll be very strict with it. I don't want to mince my words with anybody. In Benue State, I've followed issues of rape cases. It will interest you to know that policemen, men of the Nigerian police, will call for settlement of rape cases, especially in the rural areas. I have so much complaints, so much reports coming out from the villages where there will be a case of rape. It will be taken to court. The family will come and settle a GPO, settle a police officer, and they will tell you, please, you guys should go home and settle. Or sometimes you will hear something like the family came with 52 bags of yam, goat, chicken, gave the GPO like this, and cases are settled. These things we hear these things every day. It is, how would I put it? It is abnormal to what is happening in Benue State. The police have not helped matters. Half of the cases that have to do with rape taken to the police stations in Benue are not solved.
Mr. Kuru,
somehow it fizzles into the thin air. Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Kuru, these are indeed very weighty allegations. Are you willing to perhaps supply Channels TV with evidences of these allegations you're making?
Yes, I'm saying it.
No, I'm asking, do you have evidence? Can you provide us with evidences, to ensure that we can corroborate these allegations you're making?
Some of these families are so much alive. The police can even go ahead as far as, but let me tell you, this happens more in the rural areas because in the state capital, which is Makurdi, the Benue State capital, it's going to be difficult for them to do that. But some of these things happen in the rural areas where these people find it difficult for cases to move down to the state capital, maybe for transportation, or maybe who will follow it up for them, why they're in Makurdi to follow up the case, where would they stay, what would they eat. So these things are settled at the villages. I know a lot of this. I know a lot for a fact. I've been an activist for 18 years. Sometimes I break down because I can't literally even help myself. And I just laugh. And I'm ready to prove it. These families are alive. They're here. They're in Benue State. Just a call. And they will come up. So many cases of rape have not been settled in Benue and within the jurisdiction of the Nigerian Police Benue State Command. It's something I have, if you go to my Facebook page, my Twitter account, it's something I've constantly been talking about. And that is why I wasn't surprised when Ochanya's case went this way. There were too much interference. It's so disheartening that we have come back to square one at this point.
It's a very similar tale across the landscape in the trial of sexual and gender-based violence cases in the country. A question mark, that places a question mark on gender desks at different police stations in the country. I'm quite familiar, with your narrative. But in the case in which the wife of the alleged perpetrator was tried and convicted, I want you to speak to how fair that trial process was, because there were reports to the effect that the defense, protected a principal witness from testifying in that case, and that's the daughter of the perpetrator, who was privy to the abuse that was ongoing, because there are reports that Ochanya actually told Winifred Obuja, I believe that's her name, about her ordeal, and nothing was done about it. So how fair was that trial process? And speak to that particular element of, the defense not allowing Winifred to testify, and how the court went through with the trial regardless.
Okay. I might just be very brief on that, because we were quite disappointed, because when this whole stuff started, Ochanya reported to Winifred. Winifred told the father. So Winifred was the one who, from the onset, knew about how all this started. But the mother protected her from coming to testify. Even in court, we weren't satisfied with everything that was happening. And so, in the long and short of it, we weren't satisfied, we're not convinced, we're not happy as to how it went. But if, in fact, making it worse off is for you to go to Winifred's X account and see what Winifred has been posting. This is somebody who was supposed to testify and help this case go smoothly. See what she has been posting about the father and the brother who is who allegedly is being accused of also doing what she did to Ochanya before Ochanya passed away. So that's the point where we are now. We're not okay. I don't know how to start saying everything that went through the court, because, I mean, the more I talk about this, the more emotional I feel and the more pain I feel within myself, because it would have been anybody's child, it would have been anybody's brother, it would have been anybody's sister.
All right. Let's just quickly put it out there that we reached out to the public relations officer of the police command in Benue State yesterday prior to having this conversation, and our, entities to getting their side to the story, how well the investigations went amid the prosecution. But, our entities were turned down, on both sides from here. And, of course, Mr. John Ame, who's our guest, also reached out to the police command in Benue State to have them on the program. And we'll reach out to them again. And this is an open invitation to the police, especially amid this conversation and what is coming through also from Mr. Ame, that he still is getting threats to his life. Speaking of which, Mr. Ame, I want you to speak to that. These threats that you say you're still getting from those involved in this case on the other side of the divide, have you reported to the police in Benue State or to any other relevant police command?
Yes. You see, this is not the first time since the renewed call for justice about a week ago now. The threats have intensified because I'm being accused for being in the forefront of this struggle for justice. And I have no regrets about it. In fact, if it is going to take my life, I'm willing to do it, because this is what is called good trouble. If, to borrow the words of John Lewis, the late U.S. civil rights icon, this is good trouble, and we must get into good trouble. We must make necessary trouble. These people are out to get everyone out of the case. And these threats are very simple. In 2019, I wrote a petition to the Inspector General, to the Commissioner of Police in Benue State. Now, let me read part of that to you for want of time. Now, I wrote to the Commissioner of Police in Benue State, narrating how I was attacked at the Federal High Court in Makurdi. They did nothing about it. The police did nothing about it. Upon my return to Abuja, which is my base, my lawyer wrote the Inspector General of Police, Barrister Anthony Agbalaho. He wrote the Inspector General of Police, then Inspector General of Police, Mohammed Adamu, who is now retired. The police did nothing about it. And since then, we've kept going to court up until the day judgment was delivered on 28th of April, 2022, at the Federal High Court, both at the State High Court and at the Federal High Court. These judgments were delivered on the same day. Now, after the delivery of the judgment at the Federal High Court, and Mrs. Oguja was convicted, her family, her siblings, and their supporters all came to the court. As soon as she was convicted, they surrounded the court. They took over the court. In fact, they overwhelmed the NAPTIP officials and law enforcement agents and said they were never going to take their sister away, that she would be driven in their car. She was to be driven in their car to the prison facility in Makurdi. That is how violent they are. So these are things that are there. It's not hidden. They do these things. And it will surprise you to know that they do this because they have the backing of people who are in power. Otherwise, ordinary folks don't get this kind of treatment.
Yeah,
so it's very clear.
So I think you have made that point, and listening to you now, these stories are really very terrifying. I imagine that the family of the late Ochanaya should be very, very devastated by these events. And of the truth, I've had to look at the numbers of rape cases in Nigeria, for instance. They're really conflicting. The police has the lowest numbers in terms of cases reported in Nigeria. In fact, the National Human Rights has about 1,000 plus. The United Nations places it at about 1,000 as well, over 1,000, so below what the police is placing. So I imagine this is a big concern for you. But maybe in 20 seconds or less, walk us through how devastated the parents of this 13-year-old would be feeling, or how they are feeling now. I imagine that it would be a whole lot for them to digest.
It's quite traumatizing. I mean, we've been re-traumatized with the renewed call for justice in Ochanya's case. However, it's a bit suiting with the support from Nigerians across diverse backgrounds. I've been inundated with calls from many Nigerians. It's been really difficult for us as a family. It's been a challenging time for us again, having to relive the sordid circumstances that led to Ochanya's passing. Just think about it. If she were, the daughter of a prominent person, an elite, would this be happening to her? Would this be happening to us as a family?
All right.
Certainly not. Certainly not. And it is unfortunate if the Inspector General of Police, including the First Lady of Nigeria and the President, if they really are in charge of this country, they must find these people and bring them to justice, no matter how long it takes.
All right. All right. We must definitely anchor at this point. We empathize with you as you continue in your quest for justice in the case of Ochanya Elizabeth Ogbanje, and we hope that the police can respond to this clarion call to have the other accused arrested, such that a trial can commence yet again. And we hope that there's fairness if this indeed goes through, because it is representative of many other cases, amid the fight against sexual and gender-based violence. We've been talking with Mr. John Ame, elder brother of Ochanya Elizabeth, the deceased in this case, who is yet to get justice, and Mr. Uka Kuru, who is a gender and human rights activist who joined us virtually. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time on the program. And so we'll take a moment now. When we return, we'll speak to another equally important issue: the constant accidents on the highways and the state of infrastructure on those highways. Stay with us for this next one. We'll be right back.
Many thanks indeed for staying with us here on the Morning Brief. Let's get to head to that conversation now, because the last 48 hours, the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway has gotten all of the attention, but for wrong reasons. Accidents, multiple trucks ramping into one another. We were joined this hour by the Controller Lagos Roads, Ministry of Works, Engineer Olukorede Keisha, who joins us live on the program. Now, Engineer Korede, thank you indeed, as always, for agreeing to talk to us on the program. For many motorists who ply this particular highway, the observation is that somewhere on the Kara Bridge, some of the hinges have given way. I also ply the Long Bridge as well. We also have some sections of the Long Bridge as well, where the hinges too have also given way. And for many Nigerians, it's the fact that you only worked on these roads barely 2 years ago, or did some sort of maintenance as well, barely a year ago or two. Why are we back to, where we left off just a few years ago?
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Engineer Korede. Go ahead, man.
I think on that bridge, that's the main Qatar bridge, main long bridge on Lagos Ibadan highway, we did a lot of joints there. Almost, how many joints? And we have 2 that are defective at the moment. So after 2 years of serious abuse on the highway, I don't think we have a major issue here. Some of these defects are due to maybe human abuse too. Because we just suddenly discovered that there is a hole on that bridge around one of the expansion joints. So it could be due to abuse. Severally, we've caught people there trying to vandalize that public infrastructure. So many times that has happened. So we can't take abuse of that infrastructure out of the present state of the bridge at the moment.
Engineer Keisha, your principal, the Minister of Works, Engineer Dave Umahi, he was praised and has been praised for doing a fantastic job on the third mainland bridge, installing even CCTVs there to ensure that we do not see these vandalism. So is it not a question of doing the same for the Kara Bridge as well as Long Bridge as well, to ensure that we can have some sort of security for this infrastructure?
There is room for expansion. We're trying to extend that to all the bridges and public infrastructure. But you will agree with me that it's a very difficult task. But it is not one that is unsurmountable. Even on Third Mainland Bridge, do you know what we go through every day? Vandalism, theft. All the cables are being vandalized almost on a daily basis. And we're struggling every day to make sure that we restore, so that visibility can be restored to the control room. So it's a lot of issues. As much as government is trying its best, and the police people, all the security agencies saddled with that responsibility they are cooperating with us. But a lot still to be done in the area of advocacy. The citizens must know that this infrastructure belongs to all of us. And so any abuse must be resisted and rejected by the public, even before the police get there.
You seem to be emphasizing on vandalism of those expansion joints. And besides that one that is on the, just before the roundabout to Ojodu Baga, there are other expansion joints that are becoming, gaping wide holes. I can count at least 2 as you approach, what's it called now? Arepo on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, on the Long Bridge. Are you ruling out the weight of articulated vehicles and the damage that they do to the roads? Because there's a huge volume of articulated vehicles that ply this expressway, and indeed other expressways in Lagos.
Of course, you can't rule out that overload and the abuse on the part of the motorist. It's a major factor on that road. It's a major factor. Abuse is a major factor. And then most of these expansion joints we're talking about were not done 2 years ago, just to bring that to your attention. Some of them were done maybe almost 10 years ago, like Kara 1, Arepo 1. The ones that were just recently done were just those 2 on Long Bridge. Every other ones have been done long ago, almost 10 years now. It's not just a new thing. So, and because of the abuse, the heavy articulated, just like you said, heavily overloaded articulated loads vehicles plying that route. So that is expected to happen because most of those loads are overloaded for the carriageway. They are overloaded for the carriageway.
So what intervention is the Ministry of Works providing to managing these bad portions of the road? And we can also add, the turning into OPIC here, those turnings that are used a lot of the times, by motorists, they are in a deplorable state. And the intervention that is being provided is certainly not from the Federal Ministry of Works in terms of management of those, turnings into this portion of the expressway, on the Lagos portion and on the Ogun State portion. These interventions are being provided by the individuals who manage the road. And you find also a lot of articulated vehicles who park on this on that portion of the expressway. So what intervention is the Ministry of Works providing to manage this critical highway, which is really under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Works?
Currently, there's a subsisting contract on that road, and the contractor is there. On Monday, he started the repairs, initiated a program to start the repairs of these defective expansion joints. There are about 12 in numbers that have been identified now between Kara and Magboro. And he has started, but the traffic won't allow, especially the recent accidents. So he had to leave the road for now, coupled with the rainfall. So there's a subsisting contract there. We have 5 pedestrian bridges to be installed, and then the expansion joints to be restored. Then we have all the underpasses to be upgraded, and then thereafter, the ultimate solution the federal government has for that road is to concession it under HDMI, Highway Development Management Initiative, to concession it to a concessionaire who will manage that road, toll it, and then discourage abuse on the road, like parking on the road, doing business along the road, close to the road, in such a way that it's impacting on other motorists negatively. So all that will be stopped in the nearest future, which is very soon now. Once we're done with all the provision of the infrastructure, like the upgrade of the underpass, the contractor is on site as we speak now, and is extending to the Shagam interchange. So once we are done with all that, we'll hand over the road to a concessionaire. So who will be able to face the business of management of that highway, that public infrastructure, on behalf of all Nigerians.
Engineer Keisha, I mean, it does speak to perhaps the fact that sometimes we hear and say that government has no need to do business at all, because it looks like for every business the government handles, there's always a question mark somewhere. I'm concerned because I covered that road. I've done reports and special reports on that particular highway for quite some time now. And I remember that funding for this road, highways, I mean, it took I think, Sukuk funding. It was a lot of money spent here. So in 2 years, and we are back to these defects on the hinges, as you have, alluded to, which we have seen on the Kara Bridge, somewhere on Long Bridge as well. For me, I think there's a question mark somewhere. Even yes, we have. I mean, you knew that these highways would always is the busiest highways expressway, not just in Nigeria but in West Africa, because of the traffic that comes to Lagos and all of that. So the last time we also spoke to you, we mentioned this issue of the medians. It's totally an eyesore, Engineer Keisha, for a project and facility or infrastructure that the government spends so much money on, to see the medians and see how much of an eyesore it has become. I think it's really, really terrifying. And I don't know, but I believe that partnerships and collaborations should be essential for the ministry. Perhaps it's not your responsibility to ensure that people do not mess the medians up and all of that. Grass is everywhere and all of that. There's water on the medians, and that is not supposed to be. So, and physics and all of that, I mean, we know these things. I mean, it's early in the morning. I don't want to mess the breakfast of many people who are watching us around the world. So I'm just wondering, perhaps, at what point will the Minister of Works get to do something about the medians? My third question would be that when I saw the plan, when the former Minister of Works, Rajiv Fashola, was there, there's a plan that somewhere around the Kara Bridge, there's supposed to be an underpass that is supposed to be tarred. That was the original plan when this highway was supposed to be rehabilitated by the Fashola, ministerial leadership. That has not come to be up till now. The underpass there is still there. It's still messy. The rains are here. If you go under that place as well, people have to take the risk of having to turn, around Opik, which is really very risky, Engineer Keisha.
Let me start from your first question. This road was started sometime around 2013. From 2013 till now, that's about 12 years ago, we've started the reconstruction of that road. There is no portion of that road that is unpassable at the moment. That is to tell you that a good job was done. There is no portion of that road that is unpassable. Everywhere is free for you to pass and in good condition. What we have issues with is just the expansion joints. And all over the world, there is need for maintenance even after completion of a road. And government is not shying away from this. We saw that the expansion joints are giving way, and we are attending to it. I don't think we have issues with that. The asphalt on the road everywhere is good and in stable condition. It shows good management during construction. Attention was paid to details. So the expansion joint is not a big issue. And some of them have stayed for almost 10 years. So with the level of service that our highway is offering, it is not out of place. It is when government is negligent of its duty, then you can be saying this. That's number one. Then number two, you're talking about the median. And you mentioned earlier that it is government infrastructure that you see they do anyhow. When private owners or private developers, when they come into it, you see that things are managed better. It's just because everybody has this mentality that anything that is government belongs to nobody.
Oh.
And that mentality needs to be changed. It's not government that said people should go and be defacing the place now. It's not government. It's individuals. So we should, when you see public infrastructure, we should own it. And then you watch people to do it. If we start dealing with one another, when we see somebody abusing public infrastructure, and we say stop it, even before the police arrive, I'm sure they won't do it. But what you see, it's in the open glare like that. If you go on the media now, you just see people defecating there. And you see people look away.
All right.
I think we should all co-own it. We don't wait for government. We don't wait for agencies of government to do that. If you see somebody, like the people that live around that taxis, I love them so much. Once they see somebody trying to remove the solar lights that we did there, you will see them calling. Mrs. Kesha, they are removing the solar lights already. Oh, Minister of Works should do something. Oh, we've told the DPO, Arepo, we've told the DPO this. So, Mrs. Kesha, follow up. And that's why you still see some of those lights standing there. Otherwise, most of them will have gone.
Now that you mentioned lights, we'll leave you to reflect.
And then lastly, he mentioned about the U-turn.
I wonder if you're about to...
There's provision for that.
Okay, land on that thought.
Upgrade that U-turn on that car.
When, Mrs. Keisha? When, Mrs. Keisha?
No, where the contractor is working, is starting. In the rains, you can't do earthworks.
Okay.
You will agree with me that the rates are high, and the same contractor is the one. He's firing on Shagam to Iperu. It's a single contract.
All right.
So it's concentrating on the Shagam Iperu. Part of the contract is pedestrian bridges, 5 numbers, and you can see pedestrian bridges coming up at some locations. At the moment, the contractor is working. So the last one will be to upgrade the underpass. When you award the contract, it does not start and end in the day. There's a project duration.
All right. The collective
Next few
responsibility
months,
point.
we are going to see that come up. And that's why, to manage it effectively, that's why government is considering concessioning, because government can't do it all.
All right, Engineer Kisha, we must anchor at this point, but leave you to reflect on how important it is for government to also own its own share of responsibility there. Would like to see an upgrade done on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway that measures with what has been done on the Third Mainland Bridge. You talked about lights. There's no lighting on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. It comes on for some time and then it goes off again. And of course, those conflict points, those turnings, OPIC here and to the others that, Kelly mentioned earlier, the underpass, would like to see some responsiveness from the Federal Ministry of Works as well. Kelly.
Government is very responsive. Government is very active. I like to its responsibility, especially under this administration. So work is ongoing. Contractor is on site. And in the next few months, you're going to see the transformation there.
Yes, we have to leave it here. We'll continue this conversation with you after the show, Engineer Keisha. Well, Engineer Olukorede Keisha is the Federal Controller of Works. Thank you indeed for your time on the program.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, it's the last leg of the program, the morning brief. We're back in just a moment. It's a Friday. Let's get to step down and have some sort of soft conversation. Well, this last leg, we're back in just a moment. Please stay with us.
Welcome back. So let's exit domestic issues now and go to our regional frontiers and look at matters just as important. And the wind of military takeovers, perhaps in the last 5 years, has called to question the relevance, or if you like, the capability of regional organizations in this all-important quest for regional integration. Now, one organization that is leading the conversation, well, a representative of that organization joins us this morning on the program to look at this very important matter. And joining us on the program this morning is Professor Ekaite Ikpe. She's a director, African Leadership Center. Professor Ikpe, thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you so much for having me this morning.
And so we've seen a number of coups. In fact, another has joined the fray in the last few weeks, that of Madagascar. And, this calls to question the relevance of regional bodies in, upholding the values of democracy. And your organization is reflecting on that as well. What are the challenges of, ECOWAS or the African Union, or what exactly is wrong with the framework, the mechanisms for conflict resolution as we, continue the age-long quest for regional integration?
Thank you so much for that question. I think it's a very opportune time to be having this conversation. We're at a moment where ECOWAS is celebrating its 50th anniversary, having been established in 1975. And while we look at the challenges of the moment, you've highlighted some of them just now, we mustn't forget how significant this organization has been to thinking through extensive conflict on the continent, to regional economic integration as well, and to building precisely the normative frameworks that were designed to help us think about inclusive democratic governance. So I know there's a risk of coming to a conclusion that we need to jettison this infrastructure, and I think that would be a misstep. I think the moment we're in calls for us to review and to reflect, to think about how this institution has been pivotal to the successes within the region, how it has set West Africa apart on the question of regional integration. In fact, for many other regions on the continent, the work of ECOWAS until recently had been held up as a model to bear in mind, to think about, if you recall, the sort of interventions, innovative interventions that went in to address the wars in Sierra Leone and Liberia, for instance. This set out a new way of thinking about peacekeeping. So I think we must recall the importance of innovation that it has put through. Nevertheless, we are part of this conversation that's going on around the 50th anniversary of ECOWAS at a conference titled Reimagining West African Regional Cooperation and Integration, Alternative Futures. And we've set it out in that way because we want to think of the future. This is also being organized with the Africa Public Square that has been set up by the African Leadership Center and is co-convened with the Amandla Institute, Codesria, and Wathi. And here we are asking one of the key questions we're putting forward for debate, for reflection, is whether regional integration is possible without regional organizations, right? Where we recognize, we understand it is necessary. The African continent, West Africa, cannot engage on a global stage on an individual basis. We have to do this as a collective. Right. But it is a moment to think about that collective and whether this is the best approach for the future as we see it.
Professor Kaite, I mean, you have indeed laid a very interesting background. So for many, I'm just looking at some of the countries now in this region, for many, they say ECOWAS, they argue that ECOWAS has become really weak over time. I'm just wondering, what would it take to have other countries step up in terms of funding for ECOWAS? Because what we hear is that Nigeria keeps playing the big brother role, and so a lot of funding depends on Nigeria. So I think that perhaps there's a need for other countries to also step up in terms of funding for the body.
Yes, I think this is a very key question. It's a question that we have to engage with at the level of ECOWAS, at the level of the African Union, for instance, and it points us actually to the roles that various countries play within these setups. There is an expectation that Nigeria should play a larger role, and I think that is a well-founded expectation. Nigeria is indeed, has the largest economy in the region, in terms of GDP, has the highest levels, and has had a lot of influence within ECOWAS itself. So I think it's important to think of that balance, both in terms of its contribution and what it's delivering. And I think some would argue that actually that expectation that Nigeria should step up to drive the institution, as it has done in the past, has been a miss. And there are questions around whether we see Ghana stepping into the fray rather more than we have seen in the past. But I think there's a critical point here around the fact that there is an expectation on Nigeria to deliver, and it should step into the fray. We're in a moment of crisis, right? And it is important to think of this and think of how we're going to get through this moment of crisis. The point that was made earlier about the, I think it was made about the alliance of Sahel states, which of course is a huge threat to the institutional framework of ECOWAS in this moment. It requires that the larger economies, the more powerful ones, step in to think about how to assuage a lot of the contestation that is going on in this moment. I don't think it's unfair to expect Nigeria to step up to the plate. It should be doing that.
And while we're expecting Nigeria to step up and, looking to her for more funding, there's also another matter that is critical to the stability of ECOWAS, which is conflict resolution. We've seen the exit of Mali, Niger, and the third country, and prior to that time, Mauritania. So the question is, it looks as if, the belonging to ECOWAS is now based more on power than, not based more on power than every other consideration. So without funding, even if the funding component were there, what about conflict resolution and cultural differences? Is your organization looking at, other approaches, novel approaches to conflict resolution to ensure more stability in the region going forward?
Yes, no, thank you very much. I think that's a very pertinent question. So at the Africa Public Square, which will be beginning just in an hour or so, and we're really inviting all your viewers to join us. It will be featured here on channels. we're having those conversations. Another question we're asking is about the degree to which the current system, the current structure is suitable for the future. We have to articulate what needs the ECOWAS of a future needs to be speaking to, needs to be addressing. And the debate today will allow us to move into a conversation like that. Something else that we're doing is thinking through which voices are present in the room, which voices are present in these conversations. And that really speaks to what you're saying here about the significance of how it's addressing conflict resolutions, indeed other challenges that the West African region faces. Who is articulating those needs? This is why we really center an intergenerational conversation. The conversation has to be around those who are established thinkers in the field, but also really exciting emerging thinkers in the field. We can't think of an ECOWAS of the future. We can't think of an ECOWAS of peoples that isn't centering the young West African people that will decide many of those futures. So bringing them around the table in this moment to collaboratively deliberate on what those needs will be and how ECOWAS has to look to move this agenda forward of an ECOWAS of the peoples is absolutely significant and pertinent. And these are the sorts of discussions and debates that we're going to be having today. One thing I want to say about this space of the Africa Public Square is that it is distinctive because we are insisting that this is not a talk shop. This is not a place to come and complain about all that has gone wrong. It is a place for renewing. It is a place for thinking about how we build forward.
All right, you have our best wishes as you progress in that conversation, and we hope that the representatives who are in the room during deliberations at ECOWAS will also be there, such that there can be actions taken beyond the proposals. We must thank you very much, Professor Ekaite Ikpe, the director at African Leadership Forum. She's joined us on this particular conversation. Director, African Leadership Center. Thank you very much for coming through on this one.
Thank you so much for having us. We look forward to seeing you there. And ECOWAS colleagues, we are co-organizing with ECOWAS, so they'll absolutely be present in that conversation as it must be. Thank you.
All right. From here, we have just enough time to slot in another very important one. And it's the Global Media and Literacy Week that is being celebrated by the United Nations Education and Social Cultural Organization, UNESCO. And this year's celebration is themed Minds Over AI, Minds Over Artificial Intelligence. Of course, the pervasive impact of artificial intelligence is upon us, shaping how we think, how we live, how we do other things. And it's in fact encroaching on the media space. So what are the opportunities inherent for artificial intelligence in the media space such that we're not all replaced? All right, let's have this conversation. And joining us is Onyekachi Eke, the Director, Global Markets, West Africa University, is also the Executive Education Consultant and Executive Education Consultant. Thank you for joining us, Madam, on the program.
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning, everybody.
All right, let's start with this year's theme, which is Minds Over AI, MIL in digital spaces. So speak to this theme.
I think the theme is quite important, right? I will give an example. Examples work best for me. I've been in a situation where I was to interview someone, and basically the person was talking in AI speak. And I realized that as we were doing the interview, instead of having a conversation with me, would ask the person a question, and the person was typing it into probably AI and was just regurgitating answers to me. Meanwhile, on their CV, they said they had the skills to do what we needed them to do. And that speaks directly to this thing, right? Your mind is still there. AI isn't there to replace the human mind. AI needs the human mind to actually do what it needs to do. And also going back to what you mentioned about being replaced by AI, I mean, we all laughed, but the truth is AI doesn't necessarily have to replace. AI can augment what you're doing. AI is there to enhance the skills and the potential that people have. So mind over AI is very important. People need to remember that AI isn't there to replace, AI is there to enhance. So if you have 0 and you enhance it by 5, you still get 0. But if you have 2 and you enhance it by 5, 5 times 2, you get 10. So it's a multiplier effect. And that's how I believe people should think. And I think that's what the Global Information Literacy Week is trying to get people to understand.
Onyekachi, thank you indeed for that reassurance of our jobs. But how much of a threat is AI? Look, my colleagues here were just playing around some days ago, and via AI, we could see that with the use of artificial intelligence, we can create music, we can create a whole lot of things. I listened to the song, I was dancing, and then the next thing I heard was that this was AI generated. I was like, what? Seriously? So how much of a threat is AI, I mean, in this era?
So is there a threat? The threat is really immediately, the threat is for roles that are highly repetitive, right? So the first part that we see is that a lot of repetitive roles are going to be replaced via automation, right? And then what the focus will now come on is the soft skills part, which AI cannot do, right? And then you have to now be multidisciplinary in whatever it is you're doing. So, for example, you mentioned the music. Yes, AI could create a beat, but how did AI get to creating that beat that made you dance? AI, if you understand machine learning and all of that, then you know that it had to go through a lot of things that people have created to be able to come up with that beat, right? So which means that there is still space for human creativity. So is there a threat? Yes, to repetitive things that are mundane. Something that I mentioned to someone about, and I don't need accountants to be worried, but I'm like, there are so many tools right now as a small business that you can access that can help you take care of the accounting part of what you're doing. However, when you go beyond just the basic debit and credit and all the other basic accounting principles, and you go into things like, say, tax management and stuff, you're not going to rely on AI to do your tax management for you. You're going to get a tax specialist, so that person can go and do the engagement and do the planning so that you have the best outcome, right? So in other words, AI is taking you from a place where it's just repetitive and it's the same across board to where you now have to go into customer experience and specialization that makes whatever product or service you're delivering unique for the person. And I think that's what helps us with this threat.
You know, what gets me excited is that, you know, journalism is the best profession in the world. At the risk of being immodest, because I'm a broadcast journalist. So there are many opportunities, both in the online, in the print, and in the broadcast space. Talk to us about opportunities that journalists should be reflecting on amid this Global Literacy Week. If you can do that in 60 seconds, we'll appreciate it.
Okay, so opportunities that you can look at is probably maybe around digital fluency, right? Understand the technology that is available now. Look into your own industry and see the spaces where this tech can help you enhance. The beautiful thing about technology and AI is that it gives you global access, removing the barriers that people would previously have faced. Right now, I'm speaking with you, we're not in the same room. That's something that tech and AI has helped you to do, right? So the way I look at it, digital fluency is what every journalist needs to, you know, upskill on, get that, understand the technologies available, understand their uses and limitations, and then find ways in which you can plug it directly into what you do, right? So, for example, you can use tech. We are currently using Zoom. That is tech. Tech is reminding us that maybe our time is almost up and stuff like that. Then you have the accesses without those limitations.
Yeah. Thank you so much for those leads. I'm sure those who need them have taken them. Onyekachi Eke is a director, Global Markets, West Africa, and she's also an executive education consultant. Thank you for your time on the program.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
And that's our reputation. We'll always bring you a bumper harvest on the show. Thank you for being there all through the week on this edition of The Morning Brief. We'll be back again next week, renewed, reinvigorated and refreshed. I am Bukola Koka.
From Lagos, Nigeria, I am Kelly Giga. If you have to drink while driving, remember it has to be water. Sunrise Daily is next. Please stay with us.